If there's going to be unity, it's not just a color thing. It's these other ideological
Right.
frameworks and narratives that are shaping us. And so much of that comes back to what you were saying is we have to have a kingdom perspective
Right.
before we have any other perspective. Unity is only going to come through the kingdom. It's not going to come through these other ideologies.
Right. Hello, welcome to In Conversation with Joel Brooks. We're doing a part 2. I have my friend Lee Cummings here from Radiant Church here in Kalamazoo, and we've been getting into some things about where the church is, how the church has responded to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Lee, you texted me the other day and asked me about it. You heard so much stuff about the racist stuff.
Yeah.
And you figured maybe I would be dialed into that. And so I looked up some of the things he had said, and we were just talking about the need to understand the big picture. Big picture-wise, we see God was really using this guy.
Yeah.
Okay. But on the other hand, he said some things that could really be taken another way.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about the need to have conversations, especially in these learning times. Like I remember not George Floyd, but Rodney King.
Oh, yeah.
The Rodney
Early
King,
90s.
the Rodney King thing. That was, to me, that was a teaching moment for the church because people responded to it in such different ways,
Right.
you know. And then you had the OJ trial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gosh, you're taking me back.
Yeah, and then people responded to that, and that was another teaching moment when we should have had some talk. How is it you can look at the evidence I'm looking at and find this guy not guilty?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is it in your history? What is your history with the police?
Right.
That allows you to take what I'm looking at a totally different way than when I'm seeing it.
Sure.
You know?
Yep.
And then we had George Floyd, and I think that shook everybody because it was on video.
Right.
You know, and I had white pastors calling me and say, man, does that stuff really happen? You know, they were really shook about it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in a few weeks you had people saying, well, he died of an overdose, you know, and then they start talking about his life and some of the trouble he would get into, and that he was actually getting in trouble today. And I'm like, man, bad timing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's just certain things that I wouldn't say at a certain time.
And there's certain things you just don't say, even if they're true or not true. You just, it's like you mourn and you grieve with those who grieve.
Yeah, like I was telling somebody the other day, I said, I shouldn't go to a funeral where somebody's lost their mom and then get up and say, well, you know, a lot of people lost their mom last week.
Yeah.
You know, that happens every day.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't say that because they're
or
in
if
that
your
moment.
if your mom had taken better care of herself,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, right.
it's really sad she passed away.
Yeah, she changed her diet or something, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and that's just insensitive.
Yeah.
And I think as Christians, we need to talk more. So that's why you and I are here, is to kind of talk through some of these things. And I believe the assassination of Charlie Kirk, with the diverse responses to him, is a teaching moment for us as a church, because at some point, Lee, Jesus prayed that we would be one.
Yeah.
Okay, so before he comes back with all the eschatology and stuff, but at some point that has to happen.
Yeah.
And so where are we with that? What do you think about that whole the unity of the church, the oneness of the church?
I think we've in many ways come a long ways, but we still have a long ways to go.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You know, even on these are case points, right? These are case studies where you look at them. It's, you know, it's interesting to me how even the difference in opinion about Charlie Kirk even transcends color lines. It's like, you've got some black conservatives over here who are saying, you know, supporting him and saying, I've known him, he wasn't a racist.
Weeping.
Weeping.
Death.
And then you've got some white liberals over here who are condemning him and it's like, so I think it even crosses, it's not skin color line, so much of it has to do with the political landscape. And I think we have to deal with that in the church, that I think sometimes the greatest dividing line is not the scale or shade of our skin. It has how much the political lines have divided us.
Right.
And those are big. You know, I remember when George Floyd, when that thing took place here in our city, you and I connected, but I also I reached out to several pastors in our city of primarily black churches and just, you know, hey, it's what you know, I'm standing with your community. How can we help? I actually had pastor from a primarily black church come and join me on platform in my church to have a conversation in front of our church. And whenever you do those kinds of things, it's like it's a threshing floor. It's like I'm throwing the wheat up. The wind's going to separate the wheat from the chaff in your church. You're going to make somebody mad. Somebody's going to be upset. Yeah. And I went. Remember, COVID was happening at the same time, so it was like nobody's leaving home. I went and sat on stage for a Zoom conference at a black church here in town. I was the white pastor representative, and I wanted to go be with my family, my brothers and sisters. I wanted to be there to hear, to understand, to be part of that conversation, and there's a price to pay for that, but I was willing to pay that.
Right, that's good.
But what was interesting to me was a couple of years later, when here in the state of Michigan, we had the potential to change some abortion issues.
Yes.
Okay. And everybody was scared to death to talk about abortion in their pulpits for whatever reason, even and across all evangelical churches here in our city. And I started noticing it, and I'm like, we've got to do something about this. We are the ecclesia. We are the people of God, the government of God. Why aren't we not speaking about this or praying about this? Right. So I put together a big gathering here in the downtown of our city to gather the body of Christ to get together to pray, ask God to move on our behalf. Right. And I reached out to those same pastors that during George Floyd, it's like, hey, would you come and stand with me now on this issue? And I couldn't get a single pastor from the black community other than you who responded to me, and you came and participated. But it was like I got ghosted on that issue. Right. And the reason why it's a political issue. Right. It was a political issue.
Absolutely.
And to me, I felt like as a white, I'm just being honest, as a white pastor, I felt like when it comes to race issues, your silence is complicity. That's what I was told. Yeah. It's like if you don't put a blacked out box on your Instagram, then all of a sudden now you're joining in. Your silence is joining you with racism. Right. But then when the other part of the conversation happens, when the white evangelical church says to the black community, "Hey, help us. We're pro-life. We believe as believers. Life begins at conception." And it's a big. And we invite them into that. It's like we get frozen out of that. Okay. And I think those are two examples that if there's going to be unity, it's not just a color thing. It's these other ideological frameworks and narratives that are shaping us. And so much of that comes back to what you were saying, is we have to have a kingdom perspective before we have any other perspective. Unity is only going to come through the kingdom. It's not going to come through these other ideologies.
Right. There's a verse, and I mentioned it just before we started talking. 2 Chronicles 7:14. Yeah. Okay. Because I have thoughts about national destiny. Okay. I think sometimes nationalism is another trigger word. Yeah. That anytime you talk about nationalism, you are a white supremacist. Right. But I believe nations have destinies. Yeah. And I believe nations should determine where they're going. And I've been telling our people. Like, say, for instance, since 2000, 50,000 Nigerians have been killed by Muslims.
Yeah, Boko Haram.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, nobody's talking about that.
It's not even in the news. It's not. You can't hear about that. But and they're dying because they're Christians. And in Mozambique, they're killing people in front of their kids.
In Congo, same thing.
Cutting them up, dissecting, dismembering them. And so there's some awful things happening in nations. And I told people, I said, the fact that we can carry Bibles, I know we have some opposition in our country, but the fact that we can go to church and worship and do podcasts and say whatever we want to and there's nobody at the door, I said, that's a real freedom we could lose. Yeah. We have to know. I mean, when I go to England, I basically have to sneak into the country. Yeah. If they know I'm there to preach and they go on YouTube and see some of my stuff, I'm not getting in. Yeah.
It's good to know because I'm going next month. So
so I have to tell them I'm going for an anniversary. Okay. For my friend, and we did. It was his church anniversary, and he invited me in to speak.
Because they've got hate speech laws and different things. Big time.
Yeah. See, and I have a real sensitivity for that. So I knew when hate speech laws came up, I knew this is about the Bible. Mm-hmm. This is about anti-church because the Bible is the word. And so when I can make word illegal, when I can make speech illegal, then I can make Christians illegal.
Oof.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I had a sense when that happened. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna legalize and weaponize the whole thing with speech, then we could be in trouble. I was on a Zoom call, and one of our guys from India was on there, and he was asking us to pray in India, because I don't think people here understand how bad a nation can get as far as being anti-Christian.
Yeah.
And he was saying they passed a law in India where you can go to prison for life, and the law is being debated now, and it's passed a couple of its hurdles, where you could actually go to prison for life for winning somebody to the Lord. And you have connections in India.
We do. We work with an apostolic leader there called New India Church of God, Abraham, and he has about 7,000 churches in India. And I think right now, last I heard, like 18 states in India have what are called non-conversion laws.
Wow.
That if you are found guilty of coercion, and they use coercion like just if you're witnessing, you lead somebody to the Lord and they get baptized and they switch from Hinduism into Christianity, that it is a serious, like you said,
life sentence.
And the man that we work with, I think in the last several months has had 5 pastors that have been arrested and are in the process of being sentenced just for that very thing. So it's serious. And, there's 1.4 billion people in India.
Right.
It's a big nation. But yeah, I mean, it's no joke. I mean, here we feel like we're persecuted if somebody doesn't like our Facebook post. But I mean, these guys are paying a price for it.
Paying a real price for it. And like I was telling my congregation the other day, I said, you can either fight to keep your freedom, you can fight to keep the direction of your nation, or you can fight for the right even to worship.
Yeah.
And if I can freely pursue God, that means I can prosper. Yes. I can do well in a nation that allows me to pursue God, even though there's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of things in your way. Yeah. But God helps me overcome those things. But if my fight is just to worship God, then that's going to stunt everything else I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's right.
And I told him, I said, this is why the Bible says in Timothy to pray for your leaders so that you will have a peaceable life. That means it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's not a thing of God's sovereignty whether or not our nation can worship or not.
Exactly. We take that for granted, don't we?
We take that for granted, and that could go south. And so I believe I'm anti-abortion. I believe in the traditional family. I believe in the national destiny, that we have that we should fight to keep our nation a certain way.
Yeah.
So that we have the freedom. And I believe those things have been manipulated. And so if, in some people's eyes, I could be called a racist because I believe in national identity. And those terms, I think we need to know that those terms are manipulated.
Yeah, right.
And so they don't fall along the lines of race, but race is used to keep us divided in how we see race. In other words, it's not cool to be a racist.
Right. And it's not cool to be a nationalist. It's like, are you a nationalist? And my response is, well, I'm not a globalist.
Right. Absolutely.
That's the opposite. And, I think the trouble you get into is if you're a nationalist from the standpoint of, I feel like we should only care about ourselves and should have no care or compassion for anybody else. Well, of course not. Right. But, even Paul talks about nations. He says when he's preaching, I think it's in Athens, and he says, God has appointed the boundaries.
Wow, good.
He's appointed the boundaries of people or national boundaries as a means so that we would actually grope and look for God.
Right.
Cultures and nations are actually divine boundaries within given time periods that are utilized by heaven to spur revival.
Wow, that's great.
I mean, when you look at every major revival, Welsh revival, Argentina revival, even the Wesleys, there were particular times and seasons of national crisis, but they were specific circumstances taking place within nations that created the ecosystem for a move of God.
Wow.
And I think that is one of the purposes of nations. And God does have, UK, when you look at what God did with the British Empire, every empire has good and bad.
Right.
Okay. But God used it for the spread of the gospel, and then all of a sudden it dissipated. Now the United States of America is the big dog, right?
Right.
And God's using us, but we should not be so arrogant to think that we can't lose it,
right,
if we don't defend it.
Yeah, and the big thing there, I think, it's one thing to be right, okay, but it's not an evil nation that falls; it's a divided nation. And those of us who feel we're on God's side have to be sensitive to that, and not so into that division. And
that's a good word.
And that's what I think that we need to pick up on. Okay, if my people, right, who are called by my name, believers, would humble themselves, okay, empty themselves, realize the severity of the moment, and that we really need God in this moment, and pray. Begin to reach out to God, seek His face, seek His will, and turn from their wickedness. And I think that's the repentance from our wickedness. And I think each of us in each race on each side have to discern, okay, what's my wickedness?
That's really good. That's so true.
That I need to turn from. And I think for some, it's the insensitivity to the way we affect other groups with what we say. I don't want to keep anybody out of heaven. Right, and I don't want to say anything, as a pastor. Like, my dad was not a fan of pastors, of preachers. And so I tried not to do the stuff
that your dad hated.
That I knew was, what would you call it? There's a term that's right on the tip of my tongue that was typical. Like
a charlatan or a...
of the stuff that really turned him off. I tried to make sure that I never became that, because I'm sure there were other men, and we had a real male emphasis at the beginning. And so I told the women, I said, look, you can't serve here unless your husband's happy with you at home. Because I wanted to remove all of the images of the pimp player, slick preacher, wooing women, church full of women, not many men, playing to women all the time. I tried not to do that, because I realized that was one of the problems that. Do you remember the Bob Tilton revival?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I was down at Ed Cole's during that time.
Okay.
And the revival was going on in Fort Worth at the same time that Tilton's thing was going on in Dallas.
Wow.
And I flew back with a guy from Saginaw. I flew back to Michigan with a guy from Saginaw. He had been at the Tilton meeting, okay? And we were talking, and he just looked at me. He says, can I say something to you without offending you? And I'm like, yeah, man, say it. He said, the black churches in Saginaw, the women are so committed to the pastors that they will break up their families serving the church.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, that's a word. That was a God moment. And when I got back, man, I killed that stuff. I said, man, don't make no cake for me. If you bring me a cake, there ought to be a piece out of it that your husband already made. You know what I'm saying? That whole thing. I said, I don't want you. I want you to be a better wife because you're here.
Yeah.
Not a distracted wife, not a busy wife, not a wife who's not available.
Yeah, that's really good.
I want your husband to like me, even though he doesn't go to church here. I want you to be better at home, and it's because you're a Christian. It's because you go to this church. And we start winning guys, man, left and right because of that.
Yeah, they found honor in the house.
And that's just a sensitivity. What's the history here? What is your position with the people you're serving? There's certain seasons. There's certain people who have different attitude. And, how do you strategize that? And it's not manipulated, but how do you judge that terrain? How do you navigate that landscape? Yeah. And I think we've not been good at that.
No, and we got to be aware that that's part of the enemy's tactic.
Absolutely, yeah. That's good.
And he tried that with Jesus. It's like the religious leaders tried to trap Jesus in his words, maybe to get him to react,
to say the wrong thing,
or say the wrong thing, or even to say the right thing in the wrong way, they could then accuse use it.
Yeah.
And Jesus was fully aware of that, and so he was a master at learning to engage. I'll answer you, but you answer me first.
Right.
He put them, well, then I'm not going to tell you the answer.
He was a genius.
And I think we need to be as wise as serpent and as gentle as doves and learn from Jesus, because that's the arena that we work in. I think, going back to the original conversation about Charlie Kirk, here he's politics and kingdom, right? He's trying to do both.
Right.
Some of the things that he said might work in the political arena, but now he's getting held accountable for it in the spiritual arena.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know what I mean? We even talked about Trump. Trump can be, you know, he's a firebrand. He says stuff and he knows it's going to,
Yeah.
but a pastor can't say those things
Right.
because as a shepherd,
Yeah.
we're supposed to love and draw people in. Politics is about firing up your base and you know, separating out. And so if you're only seeing through one lens, you're going to think, man, I handled that really well.
Right.
But then you really didn't.
Yeah.
And
you have these cringe moments where you wish you were on an advisory board for these guys.
Yes.
And you wish you could say, oh man, don't say that.
I want to be a speechwriter for some of these
guys.
Right,
it's like, right. You say, man, I wish you hadn't said that. You're making it tough.
Yeah.
You know, for people to follow you who have maybe an issue with what you said.
Right.
Why make life hard?
Right.
You know, and in some ways, it's almost like the woke left is trying to give it to you. I mean, they're so extreme. I mean, most people can't buy into it. Even Bill Maher struggles with them.
Yeah, it's like you're converting.
Yeah.
You're converting your own base to the other side.
Because you're extreme. And I'm like, man, if we just would be a little wiser and a little more sensitive in our hearts about what's going on, you know, we could really advance our nation, advance Christianity in our nation.
Yeah,
you know?
I believe that.
And so, because for me, we've got to get the education system back. We've got to get that thing balanced because it's turning people into people that can't make it.
Well, and a big part of the problem with our education system is that we're a generation in already and moving into a second generation of people that have not been taught how to think.
Right.
They've been taught what to think.
What to think, yeah.
But we no longer teach people how to think. And that's dangerous in a social media world where 50 billion bits of idea and propaganda from every side is bombarding you and you don't know how to process because you've never been taught how to properly train.
Right.
You have voices that you listen to and whatever they say, those become reality. They become your perception.
Yeah.
And that's true on every single side of the issue.
Right.
And the ones who are going to make it through this period of time are those who know how to think because you love the Lord your God with all your heart and your mind.
And your mind, yep.
And who know how to discern and be led by the Spirit.
Right.
Those two things.
Right.
But our education system is so jacked up, and we've got to get that back.
Yeah, it dulls people to the voice of God, the heart of God. I think we have to realize that the government of the kingdom is family.
That's right.
We are a family. Okay.
That's right.
And what does it take for me to please my Father? What should my heart posture be to please my Father and keep him involved in what I'm doing? And I think that's where revival comes in. I believe at some point we have to allow ourselves to be part of the awakening. Mm-hmm. And I think the awakening has to hit both sides, both political sides.
Yeah.
And we realize that before he wraps this thing up, there's going to be a remnant of people, okay, who get along, you know, who come into the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God. Mm-hmm. You know, you and I agree on faith. You know, there might be some things, if we talk long enough, we might hit some things that we don't agree on.
Sure.
But we both believe in a move of God. We both believe that the presence of God is the answer, and that we need to be lost in him and listening to him and obeying him and advancing his cause, advancing his purposes. We can agree on that.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a remnant of people who actually come into agreement on that, Lee. I'm really believing that that's going to happen.
I do too.
And I want to be right in the middle of that. I don't want to be on outside of that, offended,
right?
You know, because of something somebody said, you know.
Offense is too easy. And Jesus actually warned us. Right. He said, you know, as things heat up, and we come in for a landing for his return. You know, however that happens, I think we all have perspectives about that. But one thing that we know is he's coming back to rule and to reign, make his enemies his footstool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And when Jesus was referring to what would take place during the time leading up to that, he said, many will have their heart grow cold and many will be offended. Yeah.
Wow. Good.
I think the greatest trap for the church at the end of the age is offense.
It is.
It's the scandalon. It's something you're not planning on, but you trip over. You trip over something, and you get offended by it, and it causes your heart to grow cold.
Right.
So we've got to be so careful to avoid that.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot bigger word than we've allowed it to be, Because when most people think of offense, they think of something I've done to you. I've hurt you and I've offended you. But to me, Leif, offense is whenever you are blinded to what God is doing in someone, in a person or a group of people. Okay, whenever the way you think about that person doesn't allow you to see what God is doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that happened in the Bible several times. It happened with the prodigal son. You know, he was blinded by what he wanted to do and didn't see the goodness in his father.
Yeah, wow.
And when he hit that hard time, reality set in. He said, man, my father's good. His servants do better than I do, and I'm a son.
Yeah.
And that caused him to repent. Yeah. I think in Luke 4, the people were offended. Jesus read out of Isaiah 61 and told them, you know, I'm here to heal you. I'm here to get you free. And they got mad at him, you know, because of familiarity. Yeah. They were offended through familiarity. I think John the Baptist was offended because of what he felt Jesus hadn't done for him.
Right.
Here I'm in prison. Yeah. And you're the guy that sets us free from prison. Right. Where are you? Are you the one, or should we look for another? And this is the only one who really knew who Jesus was. Yeah. But yet, when he was offended, it blinded him to the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He got blinded. And so if I don't think about you properly, I don't see the role that God has for you, for me in your life.
Right.
I'm robbed of that. I'm denied that. Yeah. And vice versa. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's such a good word.
And so I believe those of us who are on opposite racial sides, race it was invented to divide us.
Right.
It was invented to keep both sides out of the kingdom, out of a kingdom mindset. Yeah. Because if you have a race first mindset, you're not thinking kingdom.
Right.
You know, or the political divide. I think we've got to start talking and saying, okay, man, how do you see this? Why do you see this that way? Can we get into that? Can we dig into that? And I believe that you're in pursuit of revival. I really appreciate what you're doing. You're going to be seeing me in your meetings as you guys go after God, because I'm going after God.
Yeah. And every single time that you are, it's just, we view that as an honor. Yeah. Because I recognize what God has done in you and is doing in you and continues to do in you and through your ministry. And I don't just say that. I think, I'm not blowing smoke. It's I have to honor. I see, I can't receive honor if I don't give honor. Right. And I think the antidote to offense is honor.
That's it. Yeah, that's good.
And so if offense is I can't see what God's doing in you, the antidote is honoring what God is doing in you.
Right.
That prevents my heart from being offended. Right. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to call you my friend.
Same here, man. Hey, let's be in the middle of whatever God's doing.
Let's do it.
And let God give us some answers on how to bring some healing to the body.
I love it.
Amen. God bless you.
Yeah, you too.
You have a good day, man.